They want to send me to the desert to play a deadly game. Armed to the teeth, ready to murder and maim.
Got no say in this matter. Did you ask how I feel? Chumps like me are damn doesn't think we don't know the deal. I ain't dying for the price of gas.
I filed for a conscientious objector because I refuse to be a mercenary in the Middle East or for any other war. I am very proud to be amongst the list of distinguished speakers tonight. I am equally proud to have the opportunity to share this experience with you, a group of concerned people aligned together to stop the war, fight racism and all the other dangerous isms and phobias that serve to divide us, control us, and ultimately destroy us.
African American women will come home in body bags in disproportionate numbers, as their male counterparts did in Vietnam. I believe that it is immoral and hypocritical that African Americans are asked to make an ultimate sacrifice for a nation that refused to enact a civil rights bill to end
liberation from war, liberation from hunger, liberation from ignorance, and liberation from enmity and ill will. I say to you that this church has the kind of a spirit that this pastor didn't have to go to no board to ask whether you could come here tonight. It was automatic that you would be welcome because you are people of peace, you're people of principle, and you're people of purpose. So I say to you, stay in the struggle. Don't let nobody turn you around. But George Herbert Bush has not done his homework. He has not done his homework in stating to the American people why this war should be considered a just war, while there are times when wanton aggression should and must be checked. But he has not made his case. The jury is still out. We don't need to go into this war in the Middle East. If African American boys are in that military, they are there because they had no other choice or any other recourse but to go there. I have two sons who are sophomores and juniors at Morehouse College. And I submit to you this evening the fact that before they went to Morehouse, I had to almost borrow some choice words to tell a recruiter to stop calling to my house trying to induce my boys into the military. If we were as vigilant in getting black boys into college as we have been in getting them to the military, we would be better off. Down home where I came from, there's a statement that you can't throw straight with a crooked stick. And the stick that Bush is trying to fight with is a crooked stick. Our foreign policy is crooked. That's right. So God bless you. Let us hang together. Let us talk together. Let us pray together. Let us sing together until the day will come when all of us will live in peace and be able to perennially say, I'm black and I'm brown. I'm brown and I'm sound. I'm yellow and I'm mellow. I'm red and I ain't dead. I'm white and I'm all right.
me quickly give you a number to call. And this George Bush, White House, 202 456 1111. Tell him, bring the troops home. Bob Dole, 202 224 6521.
Please call those numbers. People say that phone calls don't make a difference, but what we're hearing, I don't know who the Gallup poll calls. They ever call any of y'all? Because whoever they called, those people told them that George Bush was the most admired person in America. I said, they do not call 415. Nothing in our area calls. They say these calls don't make a difference. They really do. What we're hearing from the papers, from the mainstream press, is that 68% of all Americans want to go to war. And we know that's not so. We know that's not so. Polls lie. Make calls, please. Now, it's been said that if the sons of senators and the grandchildren of presidents had to go to the Persian Gulf, then there would be no war. And we know that to be the case. If people who wrote columns for the New York Times op-ed page and for the LA Times were sending their children to war, we'd have a very different editorial position. If the people, the sons of presidents, are robbing us blind in the banking industry, but if the people who are writing the rules were sending their kids there, we'd have a very different situation.
Why are we in the desert? Why, a few days before Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait, did the State Department Representative April Gillespie tell Saddam Hussein, we don't care about these Arab-Arab conflicts. We have no concern with your disagreement with Kuwait. Why was the government of Iraq given that signal a few days before they went in? Why, and Julianne Malveaux alluded to this, why in the midst of Neil Bush being in the headlines about the S&L crisis, did all of a sudden we get diverted to the Middle East? Why, when peace was breaking out all over the world, when we were talking about a peace dividend that could deal with some of the people that we have to step over every day in the street who are begging, who are homeless, all the issues that we know about, why when we were about to shut down the war machine, perhaps for good, and put the stake through the heart of the beast, why has the beast rejuvenated itself more strongly than ever to carry on the vampire analogy with perhaps the blood of innocent Americans, and not just Americans, but innocent people in the Middle East who are not Americans. That's the other thing. I have no quarrel with the average Iraqi on the street, and I don't want those bombers raining down bombs on them, and people forget that consequence too. It's going to be an easy war. We'll be in and out in a few days. Yeah, what does that mean in terms of human life? What I want to do is put a human face on this, because I think Julianne made the point that so many others have made, that the people making the decisions have no personal loss to incur as a result of what they're doing. The thing that propelled me into action was hearing on McNeil Lehrer, a guy who I never think of as being my representative, when they had that Gergen-Shields debate. I don't know if you watched that. It's like, excuse me, he's representing me? I don't think so. But in any event, he said at his various dinner parties when he'd go around in Washington, none of the people discussing the policies had anybody at all who was over there. So they could talk about allied forces, troops, casualties, but it doesn't mean anything to them. And I think in the debate today in the Congress, we similarly have people talking abstractly. My brother is symbolic of many others. The three who stood up and who spoke are also symbolic of what's going on. Because of our country, because of our greed, because of our misdirected priorities, people like my brother, and he's a college graduate, smart guy, he couldn't find a job. So where does he go? He goes into the military. My father was in the Air Force. He served in Vietnam my senior year in high school. This is a tradition. It's a place where people of color can go and get some measure of respect and some responsibility and an income. And so you see disproportionate numbers of black people, brown people, Asian people, and poor people. Let us not forget that. There's a disproportionate number of Southerners, I would believe, in the service because there's such a crippling economic situation in that part of the country. Another thing that propelled me into action was, I don't know if you saw Bush's press conference where they asked him, would you sacrifice your son? Did you see that? He didn't answer. He didn't answer. He rambled, he sidestepped, he dodged. He wouldn't answer. He wouldn't answer. It's despicable. It's despicable. One last thing, and I will sit down because I just want to convey from my heart to you what this means. My brother is sitting there tonight. And what I read in the papers, they don't even know what's going on the policy level. Nobody tells them anything. They're mere cannon fodder. They're mere ground troops. He told me that he's in the cavalry, and they're the people in the tanks and on the ground. He said half of the people in the cavalry, and they're the people who will be taking the blows right away, half of those people are African American. And that tells you something. That's who's going to go and get mowed down and come home in those bodyguards. Women who are pregnant at this time and who are in the service basically get to have their children for 6 weeks after they're born. Then they have to send the kids wherever and go to the Middle East. Certain parents who were called up very quickly and are both in the military and who made no provisions for this contingency because they had no idea such a horror would take place. Certain of these parents are having their kids put in foster homes. This is real. This is what it's about. So I have no eloquent foreign policy analysis for you. I just care deeply for my brother and all the brothers and sons and wives and daughters who are sitting over there in the Middle East, waiting perhaps to die for what? I don't know what. We must act. It's important that we act. It's still a democracy when I last checked. It's our country. This will be done in our name. Let us not be like the Germans who said, what could I do? What could I do? We can do something. Many of us stopped a war in the 70s. Let's stop a war from happening.
Two groups will be needing the support of the anti-war movement. First, the conscientious objectors that we have, some of them here. But the other group that will need the support of the anti-war movement is the Arabs in the United States, particularly the Palestinians. Now, we all know the information that was given to us about the FBI visiting the Arabs to give them advice about their safety. And I never saw an FBI agent coming to tell a person about his or her safety, especially understanding from the 60s and how the FBI operated. It's harassment. Also, maybe this will be the last time that an Arab will be able to speak in public, since the Emergency Act will be signed by President Bush in the near future. So the next time that I might be speaking might be somewhere in Louisiana among the Palestinians and the Arabs that would be elected. That's part of FEMA plan, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which has a plan that's developed by the National Security Council that came out during the Iran-Contra affair. This plan exists, and it is real.
We know that Congress is craven. We know that Congress, which didn't convene in August, is now staying in session so they can vote for a resolution. They don't have the guts to stand up and declare war and show that they're on the side of the oil companies, that they're on the side of the Pentagon, but they just want to pass a resolution where they can support the president. They voted in every dollar appropriation. It's been $1 trillion since 1985 in military spending. They voted in every penny and dollar, and they cut every penny and dollar from our social services. So every one of them is guilty. And there are some who show concern, who've done some things, who've spoken out in some extent, but really, their duty is to tell us to march. Their duty is to use their power to get on television and say, sisters and brothers, you know, to my constituency It's clear that we have to stop it somehow. And I'm appealing to you. I'm appealing to you to come out in the streets.
We're on the brink of a war, yet we're also on the brink of creating a new people's movement which will change all the priorities of this nation. We need you to be present at Dolores Park on the 19th of January at 11 o'clock and at 1 o'clock for the rally at the Civic Center. This is a great gathering tonight. You need to understand that. This is fabulous, but it must be only the beginning of a mass movement of people that on the 19th of this month, we shall in fact let this nation see an army of citizens who are going to take back the leadership of this country. When our national political leadership seems to be so corrupt and so committed to lying and expecting us to believe their lies, it is so exciting and inspiring to have in our midst a person with integrity, a person of conscience, with the consciousness that we are about, indeed, a new world order, one that celebrates the dignity of all human beings. Let us welcome former Attorney General, now practicing law, Ramsey Clark.
This is an inspiring house. I mean, we heard Reverend Amos Brown. He inspired us. We heard Reverend Blake engage in a reckless activity, the introduction of a former Attorney General. More properly done in a prison, actually. I joined the Marines when I was 17, 1945. I tried to join when I was 13, 1941. It was December the 8th. There was not a black Marine in World War II, not one. In 1980, in January, George Bush was running for the presidential nomination in the Republican Party. And he had an interview with a Los Angeles Times reporter named Robert Scheer. Somehow or other, he has been led into saying you can win a nuclear war. And Scheer asked him, how can you win a nuclear war? And he says, you have the capability of survival of command, the capability of survival of industry, the capability of the survival of a percentage of your citizens. Didn't say what percentage. I have to make an aside here. It reminds me of Herman Kahn's book on thermonuclear war, where he said in 1960, in a thermonuclear war with the Soviet Union, we would lose 65 to 80 million Americans. We would win, and the rest would live, quote, happy, normal lives. But back to George Bush's interview in January of 1980. He's established the survivability of a percentage of your citizenry, your command, of course, your industry, of course, and he says, and your capacity to inflict injury on your enemy exceeds his capacity to injure you. That's how you have a winner. How is it that the people of the United States can permit the sending such a huge military force, hundreds of thousands of people, staggering capacity for violence, to the Persian Gulf, stunning speed, no consultation. No military dictator in history could have done it with less interference, with less questioning. While all these years, we have watched millions of infants starve to death on the face of the planet, knowing it. Hundreds of millions of people go through their lives short, sick, miserable, suffering malnutrition, physical and mental damage from the want of sheer food. How do we explain our ability to permit the creation of the Trident II nuclear submarine? Here is a boat about the size of the Washington Monument. It just points sideways rather than up and down. It can launch 24 missiles simultaneously while submerged. Each missile can carry 17 independently targeted, maneuverable nuclear warheads, a distance of up to 7,000 nautical miles, which means you can span 14,000, can hit a predetermined target within 300 feet of the chosen point, has an explosive capacity 10 times greater than the bomb that incinerated the peoples of Nagasaki in 1945, that quaint little instrument of destruction. A boat on which one person can take one finger and press one button and wipe out 408 centers of human population of 1 million souls each or more. We have an imperial presidency. It's the functional equivalent of a military dictatorship. We invaded Grenada. We killed more Grenadians. And this, you know, as Twain told us, there are three kinds of lies. There are lies, damn lies, and statistics. This is a statistic. It can mislead easily, but it's mathematically correct. We killed more Grenadians in 3 days, at the beginning of the invasion, including 16 people in a mental hospital, a third world mental hospital, than we lost in all of World War II on all fronts. And we gave 9,000 medals. And Ronald Reagan's highest point of popularity and the biggest news story of 1983 was the invasion of Grenada. Don't we know what it means when he starts talking about this is Hitler? We know what it means, history, and takes us for fools. Don't we know what it means when he takes a report of Amnesty International? They put out reports every week. I was on their board for 15 years, and I can tell you they have some gory reports. And I never saw one of the reports in his hands before. And suddenly he's saying how nauseated he is, and how awful it is. Did he see the report on Panama? Did he see the report on Grenada? Did he care about those reports? Did he see the reports on Saudi Arabia, the reports on Kuwait? Did he care about them? He's trying to teach us to hate, because you have to hate to go to war and kill. We've had a paralyzed Congress. It was out to lunch on August the 2nd. After all, Labor Day was coming up early in September. And the greatest military and constitutional crisis since at least Vietnam and perhaps before occurred, and the poor Congress didn't even have the will to come back and take down the out to lunch sign and at least sit there on the theory that they also serve who only stand and wait. They didn't even say a mumbling word, a few individuals hither and yon, no constitutional responsibility exercised by the Congress for weeks and months. And we know it. We also know that we the people delegated all power over war and peace, specifically and importantly in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, to the Congress, because we'd had enough of King George, first, second, third, and we wanted no fourth. Now we've got the fourth. And now our sons and daughters off to war because they felt like it, because it was profitable. Does anybody believe, have you seen anybody, or can you imagine anybody who thinks the United States military would be in Saudi Arabia if there wasn't oil in Kuwait? Is it conceivable that we would be there? I think not. I don't know anyone that believes it is. And yet here the Congress delegated the power and the duty to appropriate the first penny and the last penny. We're still working like mad on Trident II nuclear submarines. We have 20 commissioned. We haven't slowed down the production of nuclear warheads. What in the world do we think we're doing? Who are we going to nuke now? Except ourselves. In the soul. It's not in the body. If we don't turn this country around. The exclusive power to raise armies and navies. The president can't raise an army and navy. He can't ask a scout troop to come down there and help him out on a volunteer basis. He doesn't have the constitutional authority to do it. Is there a foreign nation that can come to the Middle East and say, do what I say? There's going to be peace if I have to kill you to get it and obtain it? No. There has to be a comprehensive reasoning together on all the issues of the area. And they obviously include the question of Palestine, the right of the Palestinian people, the question of Kuwait, the question of oil, the questions that remain such as they are between Iran and Iraq, all together, resolved together by the people who live in the region. The rest of the world saying, get together and do all you can and we'll support you in every way. That's what's needed. Instead, we've had a president who's delivered one ultimatum after another and then lied by claiming that he has negotiated. There's not been one moment of negotiation. And we have a military-industrial complex that wants dominion over the Persian Gulf and its resources. And that is classic colonialism. We want to pull that out. We have a bellicose press and we know it. They're egging us on to war like it was going to be the Super Bowl. There's only one power on earth that's going to cause a war in the Persian Gulf. And everyone knows who it is. It's George Bush. Nobody else is going to start a war there. Only George Bush is going to start a war. And only the American people can stop it.